Blanco, Coquille River, Cape Argo, Umpqua River, Hasita Head, Yaquina Head and Yaquina Bay, Cape Meares, Tillamook Head. The southernmost of Oregon's major lights is Cape Blanco. The 59-foot conical tower stands far up on the rocks of the cape, which raises the focal plane of the second-order Fresnel lens to a lofty 245 feet above mean sea level. Now an attraction at Bullards Beach State Park, this little lighthouse stood empty and ignored for nearly half a century, longer, in fact, than it served as an active light station. Gutted by vandals after the Coast Guard abandoned it in 1939, it was left to deteriorate, a sorry end for a structure that saved so many ships from destruction in the treacherous shallows of the Coquille River. Another sea mark familiar to lumber freighters is the Cape Argo Lighthouse, located less than 2 miles southwest of the entrance of Coos Bay. For almost 1.5 centuries, ships have sailed into the bay to take on loads of lumber and wood products. The conical, plaster-covered masonry tower of the Umpqua River Lighthouse at Winchester Bay rises above the treetops of the state park named in its honor. Lush bracken grows beneath the southern branches. Beyond are acres of sand dunes, golden-hued beaches, and the expanse of Winchester Bay. In 1755, Captain Don Bruno de Heceta of the Spanish Royal Navy led an expedition along the largely unknown coast of the Pacific Northwest. Today the headland bears his name, so does its lighthouse, one of the most beautiful and storied navigational markers in America. Built on the crest of a hill at the north entrance to Yaquina Bay, it was lighted November 3, 1871. Less than 3 years later, its lantern went dark, the victim of a bureaucratic bungle. Funds were authorized for a light further north at Cape Fallweather, but the construction material was delivered to the site of Yaquina Head, and a tower was built before the mistake was caught. With 2 lights in close proximity, Yaquina Bay was shut down. The building was soon turned over to the U.S. Life-Saving Service. One of the most beautiful lighthouses in America, the Yaquina Head Light, is a magnet for photographers and tourists who can see it from the US 101, the Pacific Coast Highway. Numerous ships have come to grief along this stretch of coast, many of them within the sight of the lighthouse. Some met their ends on the reefs off the headland itself. The Cape Meares Lighthouse was misplaced by its builders. Government officials had planned to erect the lighthouse on Cape Lookout. Because of a mapmaker's error, it ended up instead at Cape Meares, about 10 miles from its intended location. Firmly in the grip of the Pacific, Tillamook Rock was probably the most relight and least hospitable light station in America. Its construction was a heroic feat, and keeping the station supplied required fortitude. The oil lamp inside the big Fresnel lens was fired up for the first time on January 11, 1881. The light shined almost continuously for the next 76 years. It was finally extinguished in September of 1957 when the lighthouse was decommissioned and replaced by a boat. Cape Disappointment, North Head, Grays Harbor, Destruction Island, Cape Flattery, New Dungeness, Point Wilson, Point No Point, West Point, Alcly Point, Point Robinson, Mukilteo, Admiralty Head, Burroughs Island, Lime Kiln, Turn Point, Peytos Island. Cape Disappointment, located near Ilwaco, Washington, went online in 1856. Many vessels have met destruction on or near this stony cape that bears the name Disappointment. Poised on top of a cliff, Cape Disappointment Lighthouse warns mariners of danger. Next to her flows the Columbia River into the Pacific Ocean. North Head Light, also near Ilwaco, Washington, went online in 1898. The impressive lighthouse guards one of the country's windiest locations. Winds on this peninsula have attained speeds of 150 miles per hour. Grays Harbor Light near Westport, Washington was lit in 1898. Crowned by its glowing lantern room, the octagonal masonry tower of the Grays Harbor Lighthouse stands like an empress above the forest of conifers. Destruction Island Light, 1891. The island represented such a threat to shipping that it was selected as the site for one of the first lighthouses on the U.S. West Coast. In 1855, Congress appropriated $45,000 for the project, but even this considerable sum, a fortune at the time, proved woefully inadequate. The Destruction Island station would not be completed and in service for more than 3 decades. Although lighthouse keepers often faced loneliness and hardship, some perhaps considered their lives idyllic. Surrounded amid the lush summer growth, a 1940s-era keeper enjoys the company of his wife and the family dog at isolated Cape Flattery Light Station in Washington. The lighthouse stands today near the tip of the 8-mile-long Dungeness Spit. Is the same one built there in 1857. Suffering from age and structural weakness, the original 100-foot tower was in danger of collapsing by the 1920s. Engineers decided structural problems could be solved by lopping off the top 37 feet of the tower, and that was done. Point Wilson Light, Port Townsend, Washington, was commissioned and was ready for service by 1914. Constructed of reinforced concrete, the 46-foot octagonal tower was designed to reduce wind pressure of the building. Now automated, Point Wilson Light is monitored by computer from the Coast Guard station at Port Angeles. A key navigational light has shone from Point No Point since 1880. Built on a 40-track acquired by the Lighthouse Service for just $1,800, the Point No Point light station is near its twin sister lighthouse on West Point near Seattle. Both stations consist of a rectangular fog signal building with a squat tower barely peeking through the roof and a separate keeper's dwelling. The lantern of both towers originally held bullseye-type 4th-order Fresnel lenses. These lenses focused the light into a series of flashes that could be seen from about 15 miles away. Point Robinson Light, Tacoma, Washington. A fog signal was placed on the point in 1855 to protect ships from running aground on the island. Particularly threatening was a low sandy spit extending several hundred yards out into Puget Sound. Lighthouse officials soon concluded that the fog signal alone was inadequate, and in 1887 a modest lantern and lens were added to the station. Alki Point was of obvious importance to shipping, both as a daymark showing the way to Seattle and a threat in fog at night. Even so, no light was displayed here until the 1880s, when landowner Hans Martin Hansen hung up a small lantern as a humanitarian gesture. In 1887, the U.S. Lighthouse Service improved the light, installing a small lantern and lens. Hansen was paid $15 a month to keep the lamp burning. In 1913, the service decided to build a full-fledged lighthouse at Alki Point. Buying the land from Manson's heirs for $10,000, the service built an octagonal 37-foot tall masonry tower, attached fog building, and nearby keeper's dwelling. West Point Light rises 23 feet above a low sandy point at the north entrance of Elliott Bay. The lighthouse has welcomed ships to Seattle for more than 100 years. Situated 5 miles from the city's thriving urban business core, the old lighthouse stands at the foot of Magnolia Bluff in Seattle's Discovery Park. The lighthouse was built in 1881 at a cost of $25,000 and was originally fitted with a complex 4th-order Fresnel lens. Mukilteo Lighthouse. Early in the century, the Lighthouse Board decided to place a light and fog signal on the point to help guide vessels headed for Everett. Completed in 1906, the Victorian-style structure was fitted with a 4th-order Fresnel lens and equipped with a Daboll trumpet to warn ships plowing blindly through the fog or heavy weather. Admiralty Head Light, Whidbey Island, Washington. Construction began in August of 1860. Located atop a knob called Red Bluff, the tower rose 41 feet from base to lantern and had a fourth-order lens. The light could be seen for about 16 miles and guided Puget Sound traffic into Admiralty Inlet. During the Spanish-American War, the Army decided to build a fort on the bluff to protect the entrance to the inlet. The lighthouse was demolished and a replacement built on Admiralty Head and was ready by 1903. Changes in channel traffic made the station obsolete and it was discontinued in 1927. The pristine, forested setting of the Burroughs Island Lighthouse adds an extra attraction to this lovely old light station. Built in 1906, its 34-foot frame tower and attached fog signal building have served well for more than 90 years. Turnpoint Lighthouse guards the rocky shores of Stewart Island in the idyllic San Juans, frequented in summer by yachts. The lens is located on a concrete pillar in front of the old keeper's dwelling and fog house building, which dates back to 1893. The Peytos Island Lighthouse, now automated, helps boaters navigate the tangle of narrow passages separating the 172 islands in the San Juan chain. Peytos Island is a favorite haunt for picnickers and boaters. Limekiln Lighthouse faces the main shipping channel to the west of the San Juan Islands. At night, dozens of navigation lights can be seen from this point. Estevan Point, Pachina Point, Fisgard, Race Rock, Trail Island, Atkinson Point, Ivory Island. At Estevan Point, far up the rugged west coast of Vancouver Island, stands one of the most remarkable structures in western North America. The 150-foot tower of Estevan Point Lighthouse has an ultra-modern look. Despite no access roads, limited tools, supply problems, rotten food, torrential rains, and unfriendly local Indians, the tower was completed in just 3 years in 1910. The lantern atop received the finest and most powerful lighting apparatus, a rotating bullseye with a first-order Fresnel lens which could be seen by mariners 20 miles into the Pacific. The Pachina Point Lighthouse on Vancouver's rugged outer coast stands near the spot where the Valencia wrecked in 1906, the loss of 117 lives. The lighthouse, with its rotating Fresnel lens, entered service in 1908. Completed in 1860, historic Fisgard Lighthouse near Victoria stands proudly among Canada's famed imperial lights. Funded by Britain's Board of Trade, it was built with bricks and fittings imported from England. Fisgard's first keeper was also an import, an English lighthouse handyman named George Davies. The Race Rock Light, intended to mark one of the most dangerous navigation obstacles in western North America, had been scheduled to begin service early in the fall of 1860. The Imperial Light, just off the far southern toe of Vancouver Island, first shined on the evening of December 26, 1860. Had it been in service only 3 days earlier, it might have saved the hapless Nanette, a 3-masted freighter bearing a highly valuable cargo from Europe. The Canadian government completed construction of the lighthouse on Trial Island in 1906, a rectangular 3-story combination dwelling and tower. It was located near the far south end of the island, where the bare rock reaches its maximum elevation, approximately 50 feet. The building was approximately 30 feet square and the tower 34 feet high. The station was equipped with a Fresnel lens displaying a flashing beacon and a diaphonic fog signal. Despite its fame, the lighthouse seen today is not the first to mark Atkinson Point. A wooden lighthouse was erected in 1872 by Nanaimo contractor Arthur Finney, who billed the Canadian government $4,250 for the project. The light station did not go into service immediately, however. The lighting apparatus shipped thousands of miles from England turned out to be the wrong size, and another one had to be ordered. As a result, the light did not shine until the evening of March 17, 1875. After 25 years of service, the old lighthouse structure was demolished and a new concrete tower and two-story clapboard dwelling building in its place. Ivory Island Light Station, British Columbia. Canadian Coast Guard helicopters must bring mail, food, and supplies to isolated Ivory Island Lighthouse. British Columbia has few main roads and remote coastal stations like this one may be 100 miles or more from the nearest truck or shopping mall parking lot. As are many Western Canada light stations, the Ivory Island Light is maintained by resident keepers, among the last in North America. Lincoln Rock, Cape Decision, Five Finger Islands, Cape Spencer, Sentinel Island, Cape St. Elias, Cape Hinchinbrook, Scotch Cap, Cape Saracheff. Few lighthouse stations have proved as difficult to establish and maintain as the one on Lincoln Rock, a tiny barren island near the western end of the Clarence Strait, some 54 miles northwest of Ketchikan, Alaska. Funded in 1902, the project got off to a shaky start when the construction contractor lost a small steamer, a barge, and a large load of lumber in a gale. Financially strapped, the contractor tried to recoup his losses using substandard materials and was eventually fired by the lighthouse service. Purchasing its own materials, the service hired laborers and completed the station in time for its official lighting on December 1st, 1903. A short square tower pushed through the roof of the two-story wooden keeper's dwelling. The lantern contained a fourth-order Fresnel lens, which displayed a fixed white light. The building was much exposed to the elements, and waves often broke over the pier, smashing the sides of the dwelling. By 1909, the lighthouse had been so badly damaged by wave action that it had to be abandoned. It was never completely rebuilt. In 1911, a manned fog signal station went into service about a quarter of a mile from the old pier. An automated acetylene light took the place of the original beacon. The Lincoln Rock station was permanently discontinued in 1968. Cape Decision Lighthouse. The isolation of the site, funding shortages during the early years of the Depression, and the Cape's notoriously foul weather all hindered progress. After 3 years of start and stop construction, the lighthouse was finally completed in 1932 at a total cost of $158,000 and placed in service March 15th of that year. The station's square 40-foot tower rose from the flat roof of the main reinforced concrete building. Its flashing 350,000 candle power light reached out to mariners from an elevation of 96 feet. During the fog and heavy weather that frequently blankets the Cape, an especially powerful fog signal warned vessels away from the nearby rocks. A radio beacon helped guide ships in from the open Pacific. Five Finger Island Light Station was established just after the turn of the 20th century to guide ships through the Inside Passage to Juneau. Located on a craggy island in northern section of Frederick Sound, north of Petersburg, its beacon first shined on March 1, 1902. Five Finger Island's lighthouse displayed a fixed white light focused by a fourth-order Fresnel lens. Cape Spencer Light Station. Construction of the light station began in 1923 atop a precipitous exposed rock just off the tip of the cape. Completed in 1925, it consisted of a 14-foot wide square tower rising 25 feet above the flat roof of the reinforced concrete fog signal building. The lantern displays a flashing white light with a focal plane of 105 feet above the water. The station also guides vessels with an exceptionally powerful radio beacon, often received by ships as many as 200 miles offshore. Cape Spencer Light has been automated. The Sentinel Island Lighthouse is graced by a spectacular setting rivaling any in North America. Among Alaska's earliest light stations, it was established in 1902 to guide vessels into the Lynn Canal northwest of Juneau. The residence where the keepers lived a rustic and solitary existence for a year more at a time was torn down after the light was automated in 1966. A guide for ships heading for Prince William Sound or Cook Inlet, Cape Elias Station consisted of a 55-foot tall reinforced concrete tower rising from the corner of a fog signal building, a two-story keeper dwelling, a boathouse, and storage buildings. It was so isolated and so difficult to reach that supply ships arrived only once a year. Usually only men served here and forced to remain at the station for a year or more at a time. Keepers often found the existence at St. Elias an impressively confining one. Some keepers considered it the worst lighthouse duty station in America. Cape Hinchinbrook Lighthouse marks the entrance to Prince William Sound. In April 1909, contractor A.B. Lewis of Seattle brought a crew of 40 men to Hinchinbrook Island, hoping to complete the station the same year. But as was often the case with construction projects in Alaska, weather played havoc with the schedule. Rain and wind halted work for Cape Hinchinbrook for weeks at a time. Finally, on the evening of November 15, 1910, the station light began its nightly task of guiding ships. The light and fog signal were housed in an octagonal concrete building more than 50 feet in diameter, equipped with a third-order Fresnel lens of advanced design to provide the same power as a first-order lens. The lantern stood atop the two-story roof, shining from an elevation of almost 200 feet. Its light could be seen as far away as 25 miles. The original Scotch Cap Lighthouse was an octagonal wooden structure located on the side of a cliff about 90 feet above the sea, built for a total of $76,571 by a team of 30 workers brought in from Seattle. The tower and other station facilities took more than a year to complete. Placed in operation on July 5, 1903, it displayed a flashing white light produced by a third-order Fresnel lens. In 1940, the old wooden structure was replaced by a reinforced concrete structure. Ironically, it was the new, much sturdier building that was smashed and swept away by a tsunami in 1946, killing all 5 crewmen aboard. A replacement facility was ready for duty by 1950, built far up the cliff to keep it safe from any future tidal waves. The new lighthouse bore little resemblance to its predecessors. A rugged rectangular concrete structure, it looks more like a storage building than a lighthouse. The light is now fully automated and no personnel are on the station today. Clinging to the roofs of hell on bleak Unimak Island in the Aleutians, Cape Sarichef Lighthouse is the most westerly lighthouse in North America. Automated since 1950, the station dates to 1904, when it was placed here to guide ships through the Unimak Pass, which links the Pacific Ocean with the Bering Sea.